Hello everyone, I'm Tommy Esau from Kwaio Cultural Center, and I will be talking about the Kwaio Archive project, which has been going for a long time. But first, I would like to acknowledge um, our ancestors, past, present, and future, for the amount of work that have been contributed to this project. But before I could talk about our current project, I would like to invite Dr. David Akin, who is my colleague. He will um, briefly talk to us about the history of this Kwaio archive before I can continue on the project, our current project, um, and the future, and some of the challenges that we face. Thank you, David Akin.
Thanks, Tommy. As Tommy said, I'm just going to give you a brief background so you can know what this Kwaio Archive project came out of. It's actually part of what's a 43-year project in Kwaio. It started in 1979 when people in the mountains of East Kwaio initiated the Solomon's first community-run cultural center called the Kwaio Cultural Center at Nganina Suru behind Sinalangu Harbor. And the project includes schools and a women's club and an arts project and many other things. But most relevant to us here is that it began a community-run archive of written and audio materials. Um, the latter materials included uh, things that collected from knowledgeable men and women, really anyone who wanted to contribute, including oral histories, ancestral myths, genealogies, musical performances. Um, a key center goal was to strengthen Kwaio custom, both in the sense of preserving enduring Kwaio ways, but also in the political sense of strengthening Kwaio cultural, economic, and political autonomy. This was a major concern of people who were behind the center. Um, the archive was closely tied to the Kwaio schools, which are at the center of the project, because audio recordings collected for the archive were transcribed and then used to make school books, which allowed the community to take part in the educational project, which people really liked. Unfortunately, in 1986, the center was destroyed by Cyclone Namu, but copies of the archive material were preserved. And yet, because of political conflicts, the cultural center never really reopened at Nganingasuru, even though center schools kept operating further into the mountains. Um, to jump over a long story, in 1995, I started discussions with Kwaio people about reestablishing the Kwaio archive to hold not just the previous archive, but also most of the field materials of anthropologist Roger Kishin and myself, which represents over 12 years of field work in all. And also, there were large collections of archival photographs and documents that I'd collected, writings about the Solomons. So really, this is material collected over across 60 years by Kising and myself mostly. Um, I'd been discussing this project and the possibility of reestablishing the archive with older Kwaio people for a long time, but at this point, there were now a lot more young men and women who were interested, which changed the dynamic of making it happen. But there was this huge obstacle, and that there was no place to put everything in the Kwaio Mountains. The mountain environment is, well, those of you who work in Melanesia know, is unkind to paper. There were no permanent buildings. And after several years and several meetings, the community determined to build an archive building. And they built it at Kwaio, which is a regional meeting center in the central bush. And the key thing that had changed to make this happen, to make this possible, was that there were now alternative energy sources available in the Solomons. They were just starting to become available, and they offered solutions to these big problems of how to get materials to Kwaio and how to preserve them once they were there. Um, Long story short, the new Kwaio archive formally opened at Kwaio in 2016, and it's fully digital. It's wind and solar powered. There are now about 250,000 files in the archive, and it's still growing. One of the great things is one reason is that it's growing is because Kwaio people are collecting materials for it, including a lot of photographic and video files. Um, We've also been working with the Tucson Archive for Melanesian Studies at the University of California at San Diego. They're sort of nurturing a long-term relationship we have with them. And their archivist, Cristela Garcia Spitz, will talk about that cooperative work in more detail tomorrow in the sort of a second part of the talk about the Kwaio archive. So with that, Tommy, I think I'll pass it back to you to take up where I left off.
Thanks, David. I will continue from there, but I will use a PowerPoint just to give you some photos while I am talking about what we're currently doing. Just taking on from David, I involved with this project since 2014 with the realization for the need of this important work to continue, because there is a need to preserve and maintain Kwaio knowledge and the environment. And so we kind of shift a little bit on like collecting like historical information, but we also wanna record some information about plants and animal and how people live and their connection with their environment. And more importantly, we know that the traditional knowledge is disappearing due to changes of education in the way of life. And many Kwaio people have a lot of knowledge about custom medicine from the forest. And the Kwaio Archive project is collecting historical and cultural record across many research that can be used by Kwaio people. And so we realized that this is a great place to start and expand on the work. And so in 2014 to 2016, we were able to do a small project, which is documenting indigenous plants and the knowledge to strengthen conservation management in Kwaio Solon Islands. So the project basically is to build capacity on how to preserve and photograph and press plant specimens, and also archive in Kwaio AC Cultural Center, accompanied with the Kwaio Archive project. And so we had some support from the CEPF, the International Union for Conservation of Nature, and also James Cook Uni and the Australian Tropical Herbarium also support us with providing training of how to do photography and plant specimen. And so this has attracted some institutions, and we also expand our network and collaboration. And so in 2016 to 2019, we start working with the Australian Museum and also James Cook University to continue with the work on Mammal project. And so we did some work around conservation work, mainly documenting plants and animals around our areas, how they link with the environment and how it is special for us to preserve those animals because they are rare, which we don't know about it. And so this involves work around mammal surveys, bird, snails and insects, and frog surveys. There are other works that involve mapping, reforestation, because we see that these are very important work that is really important to the environment that we should be doing. And so it also, in 2020 until now, we are continuing on this important work, especially supporting the community development and also working directly with tribe on this project. So some of the outcomes that we achieved during our work, we had some cultural exchange program. We visited Australian Museum and we visited their archive in Sydney, and it was an eye-opening to us to see how this important work about archiving and museum that we really wanted to do in the future. We also established 4 conservation areas in the mountains, and currently we have established 3 cultural schools where they teach basic English and writing and also Kwaio language. And also we had some training from David Akin in on computer trainings in 2017 and 18. And not only that, but with our current work we were able to establish some local, national, and international collaboration network with other institutions. Um, we have also published 4 papers on conservation on international journals. And now we have established the Baro Conservation Alliance as a body that coordinate and manage most of the conservation work on the ground. And the wonderful news about all of this work is that all the data collected from all our work will be archived and maintained in the Kwaio archive, and it's expanding now and then. However, there is much to be happy about and proud of here, but we're still facing significant challenges. At the logistic technical level, although it is easier to protect few laptops, computers, than thousands of paper files, the tropical environment is hard on computer and they must be replaced on a fairly basis. This is expensive. Also, there is also no internet up at the mountain, and we cannot afford a satellite disk. We hope we will change before too late, which we solve, which will solve many logistical problems. Though many, the other challenge that we face is though many files in the archive are in the Kwaio language and the audio and visual materials are accessible by all. Many thousands of our files, particularly archival files, are in English and few people in the mountains can read. Um, we need to better establish enduring relationship with the institutions like Tuzin Archive to continue with the work that we are doing. Right now, our connection abroad depends too much on personal relationship. What will happen to our project if the individual we depend on the United States or Australia or leaders most involved within Kwaio are no longer around? And so therefore building more institutional continuity is very crucial. Um, as the collection grows, it becomes clearer that we badly need to find training for Kwaio people in skills needed to better organize and catalog the archive and sustain it. The other challenge is the Kwaio community is diverse, and there are rivalries between coastal Christian and non-Christian mountains. People also, it is all too easy for any project to be pulled into such rivalry despite best efforts. These are factions on the coastal Kwaio community and a few in the mountains who oppose the Kwaio Archive project in principle, and some have done their best to undermine it. On this score, things are improving slowly. We have established section of the archive devoted to each of the different churches in Kwaio, and many people, all sides are coming to accept and admire the project. But we have a long way to go before everyone comes to see it as something for everyone's benefit and easily, and especially for every children. Such political challenges to project are not, of course, unique to Kwaio. And so moving on from there, what we want to continue to do is we wanted to expand on documentation and trainings. We want to do more awareness program about the archive work and its significance. We wanted to encourage more collaboration with other institutions. And like, as I've said, we need to better establish enduring relationship with institutions like Tuzin Archive. And one of our design, our goal is to build a good infrastructure and a Kwaio museum that we can keep all of the archival material, and also our arts and craft that our work can be expanding. Thank you very much. If you have any question or if you want to know more information about the Kwaio archive work, feel free to contact myself on that email or David Akin for any question or if you want to know more about our project. Baule Baita, and thank you very much.